Hello and welcome. This is Notibot Yenji. I'm your anchor, and tonight we're bringing you the latest developments from the Middle East and Europe, where tensions are escalating and the stakes are high. We'll explore the UAE's growing involvement in the Iran war, the Trump administration's efforts to sideline Europe, and the US's plans for a swift resolution. We'll also delve into Iran's outsourcing of terrorism campaigns and the EU's push for a resolution to the blackseagrain model. We'll bring you the latest updates and insights in this complex and rapidly unfolding story. We're seeing a growing alarm from Iranian sources that the UAE's military presence in the region may be a major flashpoint if the US launches an invasion. The United Arab Emirates has been accused of playing an active role in the conflict between the US and Iran, with Tehran warning that any US-led invasion of strategic islands in the Strait of Hormuz would be met with widespread attacks on Emirati state assets. A month into the conflict, which has sent shockwaves through global markets, U.S. President Donald Trump is weighing the option of using ground troops to seize control of Karg Island and Qashem Island, both of which are critical to Iran's oil exports. The islands are the focus of a long-standing dispute between Iran and the UAE, with the U.S. seeking to use them as a strategic foothold in the region. According to senior Iranian sources, the UAE has provided air facilities for Israeli operations against Iran, while also hosting U.S. military bases that have been targeted in Iranian retaliatory attacks. This has led to a significant escalation of tensions in the region, with the UAE's ambassador to the U.S. recently calling for a conclusive outcome that would address Iran's full range of threats. The UAE's close ties to Israel have also raised concerns among Gulf Arab states, which have come under attack in retaliation for U.S.-Israeli strikes on Iran. The situation is deeply concerning, with the potential for a wider conflict between the U.S., Iran, and the UAE. The implications for regional stability and global energy supplies are significant, with the Strait of Hormuz being a critical choke point for oil exports. As the situation continues to unfold, one thing is clear: the stakes are high, and the consequences of miscalculation could be catastrophic. As tensions escalate in the Middle East, the Trump administration's actions are raising eyebrows in Europe, where a new world order is rapidly taking shape. The US and Europe are at odds over the Iran crisis, with the US President Donald Trump threatening to undermine European interests. In a recent statement, Trump warned that if European countries fail to help reopen the Strait of Hormuz, it will be very bad for the future of NATO. The Strait of Hormuz is a critical waterway that connects the Gulf to the open sea, and its control is crucial for global energy supplies. U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio has made it clear that the U.S. will make its own security decisions, regardless of what Europe thinks. This has sent a clear message that the U.S. is no longer relying on European allies to achieve its objectives. The U.S.-Israeli strikes on Iran have further exacerbated the situation, with the EU struggling to respond effectively. The EU's response to the crisis has been criticized as weak and indecisive, with member states failing to speak with one clear voice. This has led to a perception that Europe is no longer a unified and credible player on the world stage. The situation matters because it reflects the growing rift between the US and Europe and the challenges of navigating a new world order. The stakes are high, with the US and Iran locked in a confrontation that could have far-reaching consequences for global security and energy supplies. As tensions with Iran continue to escalate, a prominent U.S. senator has issued a stark warning to the international community regarding the conflict. U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio has reportedly told G7 ministers that the U.S.-Israeli war on Iran should come to an end in weeks, not months. According to Reuters, this was disclosed during a meeting of G7 foreign ministers in France, where Rubio did not ask his counterparts to contribute ships to clear the Strait of Hormuz immediately. Instead, Rubio asked the G7 ministers to prepare for a post-war role. Rubio's comments come as tensions between Iran and Israel remain high, with the U.S. having recently certified that Iran's nuclear program is no longer a threat. The situation has sparked a mix of concerns and optimism among world leaders, with some seeing a potential opportunity for diplomacy and others fearing a wider conflict. The G7 meeting is a significant development, given the group's collective weight and influence on global affairs. The fact that Rubio emphasized the need for a swift resolution suggests that the U.S. is eager to capitalize on the current momentum and avoid prolonging the conflict. Meanwhile, Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has vowed to continue his country's military operations against Iranian targets, despite the U.S. certification. Rubio's comments also underscore the complex dynamics at play, with the U.S., Israel, and Iran all holding different perspectives on the conflict. The outcome will have significant implications for regional stability, global oil markets, and the balance of power in the Middle East. As the situation unfolds, world leaders will be watching closely to see how events in the region play out. According to Senator Marco Rubio, the U.S. military operation against Iran is nearing its end, with completion expected within the next couple of weeks. U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio has confirmed that the U.S. is nearing the end of its military operations in Iran, with a timeline of completion expected within the next couple of weeks. This announcement comes as the fourth week of the U.S.-led military campaign in Iran is set to conclude, with Rubio stating that objectives are being achieved ahead of schedule. The conflict began on February 28, and since then, several top Iranian leaders have been killed in airstrikes and targeted killings. The U.S. and Israel have consistently stated that the operations would last for 4 to 7 weeks, with Rubio's revised timeline fitting within this predicted timeframe. However, he emphasized that the exact completion date is uncertain, and it's a matter of weeks, not months. Rubio also mentioned that the U.S. has sent troops to the region to provide President Donald Trump with options, indicating a continued military presence. Trump has reportedly passed on a 15-point plan to end the war to the Iranians, although the details of the proposal remain unclear. The U.S. Secretary of State has stated that the U.S. has received messages from the Iranian side, but is waiting for further clarification on who is representing the country and what specific issues will be discussed. The foreign ministers of the G7 group of major Western economies have called for the restoration of safe navigation through the Strait of Hormuz, which Iran has closed in retaliation for the U.S.-led military campaign. This closure has significant implications for global trade and energy security, with the U.S. and its allies pushing for a swift resolution to the crisis. Exclusive insight into a disturbing trend. As Iran's terrorist activities escalate, the country is increasingly turning to biker gangs and hired mercenaries. A firebombing attack on 4 ambulances in Golders Green, North London, has raised concerns about Iran's growing involvement in terrorism campaigns. The attack, which occurred on Monday, targeted ambulances owned by a Jewish charity, resulting in significant damage and disruption to the community. The police investigation is ongoing, with 2 British nationals arrested and subsequently bailed. According to reports, the alleged claim of responsibility for the attack comes from a supposed new group allegedly linked to the Iranian regime. Mohsen Rafidust, a former minister of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps (IRGC), has been implicated in orchestrating assassinations in Europe, including the murders of Prince Shahryar Shafiq and Jin Ghulam Ali Obaisai. Rafidust's claims of involvement in these murders, made during an interview, have raised questions about the extent of Iran's involvement in terrorism. Experts say that the use of terror tactics by the Iranian regime is a growing concern. The attack on the ambulances has brought attention to the potential hallmarks of Iranian involvement, including the use of intermediaries and proxy groups. The involvement of an Egyptian cleric based in Germany in coordinating the payments for the assassinations, as reported by Rafidust, highlights the regime's efforts to distance itself from direct attribution. The attack on the ambulances has significant implications for the Jewish community in the UK and beyond. The use of terror tactics by the Iranian regime is a threat to global security, and the international community must take action to address this issue. The investigation into the attack is ongoing, and it remains to be seen whether the alleged claim of responsibility from the Iranian regime is verified. As tensions over global food supplies continue to escalate, the European Union is now pushing for a key maritime route to be reopened. European Union officials are urging Iran to unblock the Strait of Hormuz, a critical waterway in the Middle East, following the successful implementation of a Black Sea grain export deal. The deal, which was established last month, allows Ukraine to export grain through Russia-controlled ports in exchange for Russian grain exports. The EU has now called on Iran to do the same, citing the importance of maritime trade and global food security. The EU's envoy to Iran, Adam O'Brien, made the request during a meeting with Iranian officials. O'Brien emphasized the need for increased cooperation between the two sides, as well as for Iran to unblock the Strait of Hormuz, which has been subject to restrictions since the US withdrew from the Iran nuclear deal in 2018. The EU's call comes as tensions between Iran and the US remain high, with the US imposing sanctions on Iran in recent weeks. The EU is seeking to maintain diplomatic channels with Iran, while also promoting its own interests in the region. The situation in the Strait of Hormuz is critical, as it is a key artery for global trade. Restrictions on the waterway could have significant economic and food security implications, particularly for countries in the Middle East and Africa that rely heavily on imports. The EU's call for Iran to unblock the Strait of Hormuz is a key development in the ongoing diplomatic efforts in the region. That's all for tonight's news recap. Thank you for watching. We'll continue to bring you updates on the evolving Middle East situation, from the UAE's role in the Iran war to the US's response. Don't miss our in-depth analysis and expert opinions. Subscribe to our channel for the latest news and updates. Stay informed, stay up to date, and we'll see you in the next video.